Severely damaged and abandoned. That is how the Australian Member of Parliament Russell Broadbent is describing citizens in his own country. He is now advocating on behalf of the thousands of Australians who have experienced an adverse reaction after getting a COVID-19 vaccine. Stories of the vaccine injured, it appears, is continuing to break into the mainstream. That is the subject of today's episode. And so, from TrialSite News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, with thousands of COVID-19 vaccine-injured people reporting that they are all but non-existent across Australian society, a Liberal Member of Parliament has decided to step up and embrace their cause. In what represents a growing trend, more and more politicians and mainstream media outlets are finally starting to acknowledge and even embrace the COVID-19 vaccine-injured. Russell Broadbent, who has now become an advocate for the COVID-19 vaccine injuries in Australia, said this: "It is very distressing to have these people face to face and be speaking to them when you see some of them are so severely damaged. Every one of these vaccine injuries were strong, healthy, well men and women before they took the vaccine." And he is not alone here. As the article from Sky News points out, former AMA President Karen Phelps has been involved in the fight to represent those injured by the COVID vaccine, indicating the importance of putting the spotlight on this issue, saying, "Without acknowledgement and recognition of post-vaccination syndrome or vaccine injury, there can be no progress in developing protocols for diagnosis and treatment, and it is difficult to be included in research projects or treatment programs. It has also meant a long and frustrating search for acknowledgement and an attempt to treatment from many individual patients." And Phelps has a personal stake in this fight. As she disclosed back in December, she said, "This is an issue that I've witnessed firsthand with my wife, who suffered a severe neurological reaction to her first Pfizer vaccine within minutes, including burning face and gums, paresthesia, and numb hands and feet while under observation by myself, another doctor, and a registered nurse at the time of immunization. I continue to observe the devastating effects a year and a half later with the addition of fatigue and additional neurological symptoms including nerve pains, altered sense of smell, visual disturbance, and musculoskeletal inflammation. The diagnosis and causation has been confirmed by several specialists who have told me that they have seen a lot of patients in a similar situation." Now, the reason why all of this matters is that not only are those being injured being ignored and cast aside despite them following government instructions, for those who didn't get vaccinated in Australia, from fear of the potential of injury or other objections, aren't faring much better. For example, in Australia, the treatment of those who are unvaccinated is deplorable. I want to share with you a recent story about a woman who is being denied a heart transplant due to her COVID-19 vaccination status. As reported by the New York Post, Vicky Dadarian from Melbourne is barely hanging in there. She's clinging to life, desperate to receive a transplant, one that her authoritarian masters are determined to keep from her because she has refused to obey their COVID mandates. What is keeping her alive right now is a ventricular assist device. It's the only thing between her and death right now, as it keeps her heart functioning after it failed back in 2020. According to the Post, she did not receive the vaccine because she is concerned that doing so could increase her risk of heart conditions such as myocarditis or pericarditis, which, although rare, can be serious. Vicky told Channel 9's Today Show that the hospital stance at the moment is no jab, no heart. "I am ready to be on the heart transplant list because medically I'm stable to be on it. But unfortunately, because of these mandates, it has interfered with patient-doctor relationships. Patients like myself were being pushed into a corner and coerced to take something that goes against what we believe in, or not receive life-saving treatment. And also for doctors as well. They are forced to implement this on their patients, otherwise they'll lose their jobs." However, former Deputy Chief Health Officer Dr. Nick Coatsworth, 44 years old, who has spoken out against vaccination mandates in the past, urging corporations to rethink mandates, arguing vaccination does not reduce the transmissibility of the Omicron variant, and Australians of working age are less likely to become severely ill, is now essentially telling this woman, "Too bad, so sad." He has expressed sympathy for Vicky's situation, you see, but defends the denial of the transplant and suggested there was a good reason surgery patients needed the vaccine. Here's what this man had to say. From a transplant physician's point of view, the biggest risk to you when we hit your immune system like that, if you get COVID-19 without having the vaccine, then there's a really significant risk that you'll die, and the organ will die with you. And we don't want that to happen to you, and we certainly don't want it to happen to the family who's made that sacred donation. So it is such a complex area. I don't envy your decision, but I do stand by the rules that the transplant physicians have made. Now, Vicky Dadarian continues to defend her refusal to take the vaccine. She said that I wanted to minimize risk as much as possible because, as you know, heart transplant is not a walk in the park operation. It is very complicated. It has a lot of risks. And to face those risks on top of an unknown risk from a vaccination that has had partial approval, I had to think twice, and it was a very hard decision. Dr. Coatsworth, meanwhile, acknowledged that there was indeed a risk from the COVID-19 vaccine, but insisted that it is very, very small. Now, shifting back to our main story, the defense of the vaccine injured, while the government does have a system in place that is supposed to compensate Australians who had suffered a, quote, moderate to severe impact following vaccination, the available payouts for those injured by the vaccination is insultingly low. Under the current scheme, claimants are able to receive a one-off compensation payment for costs between $1,000 upwards of $19,999.99. That's it. To make matters worse, the injured then must jump through a bunch of hoops to even meet the eligibility requirements to get compensation. Those wishing to file claims must have received a TGA-approved COVID-19 vaccine. They must meet the definition of harm, meaning the doctor needs to advise the specific harm you suffered was most likely caused by the COVID-19 vaccine and that other circumstances are less likely, and you have to complete a COVID-19 vaccine claims scheme medical report, which you must include with your claim. And then on top of all of that, you have to have been admitted to a hospital and incurred losses of at least $1,000 or more as a result. Now, in this eligibility process, I want to point something out. Those claiming to be injured by the vaccine are dependent on a doctor's report. However, many general practitioners in Australia have faced deregistration by the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency. The agency has threatened doctors who promote supposedly anti-vaccination claims. And surprise, surprise, they don't designate what constitutes an anti-vaccination claim. It's not clearly defined by the AHPRA. Leaving doctors to complain, it has led to the censorship of public discussion about adverse events following immunization. As Dr. Phelps would put it, vaccine injury is a subject that few in the medical profession have wanted to talk about. Regulators of the medical profession have censored public discussion about adverse events following immunization, with threats to doctors not to make any public statements about anything that might undermine the government's vaccine rollout or risk suspension or loss of their registration. So to give you an idea how all of this played out over the last couple of years, since the compensation program was established back in 2021, there have been more than 3,200 claims with only 3% of them, or just 109 people, approved. Now, Member of Parliament Russell Broadbent has written to the Health Minister Mark Butler about the Albanese government's ongoing response for the vaccine injured. And as Sky News reported, the Liberal Member of Parliament told Sky News Australia he believes it is his job as an elected official to advocate for Australians who have suffered debilitating adverse reactions. As Broadbent put it, it comes back down to us, the politicians, in the end. Indeed, it is important for elected officials to speak up about this urgent issue. And it is very long overdue. The way I see it, though, the more people talking about this issue, the greater the chance that we might actually take care of those who have been harmed and bring relief to those who are in desperate need of it. Something that should have been the focus a very long time ago. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. As always, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. For more content like this, be sure to check back to this channel Monday through Friday, and for written articles every day, 7 days a week, feel free to check us out at TrialSiteNews.com. From TrialSite News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.